Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have Phylis regarding program improvement. Phylis Peters is the CTA representative. I'm giving you some time to get up.
Good evening, school board and district officials. I wanted to talk to you a moment about program improvement because it has become an issue with our school board election, and we seem to have some lack of information, or information should be very clear about what program improvement is and how it is affecting the charter of the schools. Lori is going to pass out the documents for the members. Back in the 90s, we had this, I call the phonics era, where phonics was the big thing for kids. And we had politicians talking about, well, whether kids should have phonics. So everybody was learning how to phonetically read. And teachers and administrators said, we have to have a balanced approach to reading. You can't just have phonics. You have to have whole language and phonics. Nobody listened to educators. They decided to have phonics only. So kids could decode, but they had no means of understanding comprehension. So that didn't work. Then we went to the other end of the spectrum where we had whole language only. They said, oh, we don't need phonics. Kids they can learn to read with whole language, sight word recognition only. Well, the kids couldn't read. So we went from one extreme to the other because the politicians were making the laws for educators about what they felt were best for kids. Well, the program improvement is another bad law that we are faced with a lot of challenges as educators and for the parents and community about the schools. When the law was passed, under No Child Left Behind, there were some really good things that happened out of that legislation. One, we had the recognition of highly qualified teachers, where teachers had to be certified, all of their documentation for their credentials were all in order, and that was a positive thing for parents to know that their teachers were highly qualified and the kids that they were instructing. The other part of this law was the program improvement, where the president at that time, President Boch, said that he felt that every child should be proficient in math and reading by 2014. And immediately, educators said, we're going to have a problem with that because he's saying one size fits all, every child. And so that went into law, went into effect, and in 2003, you had to have a 13.6% increase in test scores. Then by 2011, it went to 67.6, and by 2014, every child in the state of California has to be proficient in reading and math. The problem with that is, and this document, you'll see there are many schools, some of your very distinguished districts, schools that are considered distinguished schools will be considered P.I. because the subgroups of the kids that are tested, and a subgroup could be one child, it could be 3 students. If that subgroup doesn't make the growth that is needed with those scores, the school is then considered a failure. It is a P.I. school. And when you look at this list, you'll be very surprised to see that some of our neighborhood schools that we thought are okay, and they are okay, are going to be P.I. next year. We have a bad law that needs to be changed. The public is not aware that a P.I. school doesn't mean that the school is not performing. It means that the subgroup is partially the problem. And so at the candidates forum, 2 of the candidates were quickly to talk about our scores not being what they should and how we should increase instructional minutes, and really take a look at why we're not performing. Perhaps what we need to look at is that we have a bad law, and that while we must address our schools to make sure that they are improving with test scores, let's not beat the horse to death with the fact that we have a bad law that politicians have put in place. Teachers are frustrated, as well as students, because you are basing whether a school is a good school based on a test score. One of my districts, which is on this list, the school, the elementary school, has a test score of 910, and if that school doesn't make the A.Y.P score, they will be a program improvement. So how can you have a test score of 910 and you're still considered a failing school under P.I.? There's something wrong with this law, and we need to educate the community and our parents that we need to change this law so that we don't become a victim to this bad law.
Peter,
Yes.
you hit it. I'm against the wall.
That way, I am going to be writing an article to the editor of the Patch, the Star News, and the Tribune, because we have to get this message out to the community and parents that because we are P.I. doesn't mean we are favored schools. We have bad laws.
Thank you. That's all the